guys, so we are here. We are in this amazing interview, and I want to introduce to you guys Mr. Alex Montalban. Is that how you say it correctly?
Montalban. Para los
Montalban.
hombres
A
que
little
no hablan
flavor to it.
español es Montalban.
Espanol. Do you speak Spanish?
Sí, yo hablo un poquito.
Un poquito. And we have Natalie Rodriguez. She is Latina filmmaker, and
Yeah.
her new film, it's coming out, Extraordinary Ordinary. Natalie, can you tell us about that?
Yeah, of course. Well, first of all, you're meeting my wonderful leading man, Alex Montalban. He plays one of the three leading characters in The Extraordinary Ordinary. In the film, I'm so excited because we just released yesterday. I just got the news like in the middle of the day on Infobase. So Infobase is a streaming platform from colleges and high schools all over Southern California, throughout the actually throughout the US, excuse me. So anyone that has access to that, they can now catch the film. And the film's coming out globally, nationwide. It'll be available in US, UK, and Asia on, I almost said April, August 28th, which is in 2 weeks starting tomorrow. And Extraordinary Ordinary, it's about three young adults. They learn how to cope with their mental health and with their personal life when old wounds resurface for them. And yeah, it's a very special project. I mean, filmed it 2 years ago, like many small budget independent features. It's definitely, I mean, it hits home for a lot of the cast and crew, and we've been getting great responses from just people who watched it. And today and this weekend, we're actually getting reviews from a few notable trades. I don't want to say who they are yet, but I just got word from our film publicist that people are starting to watch it, and they've been responding very positive to the film right now.
That is awesome. And
Yeah.
question, how did you guys connect? What is that story? Before we even start, how did that happen? What your connection, Alex with Natalie, Natalie with Alex?
Yeah. Take away.
Uh, I mean, it was Maddie, right?
hmm
She sent me this script called The Extraordinary Ordinary. She said, "You have to read this. There's a role in there for you." I read it. As I'm speaking, I'm like getting goosebumps because
Oh.
it was such a strong, strong story, and there was really only one role in there, Nat,
Yeah.
that was right for me. But Maddison, our co-lead, sent me
hmm
the script. I read it. I loved it. She linked me up with Nat.
hmm
Nat said, "Here are two scenes. Put yourself on tape." I immediately responded to the first scene and just put it all out there. And I think it was very well received by Natalie.
Yeah,
Uh,
it
uh,
was.
uh, Story goes, my self tape made you cry.
It did.
Really?
So that's a little fun fact. Yeah, because Madison, the co-lead, she plays Erica in the film. She had worked with Alex, I think, before, and kind of like a lot of films, we had someone else for the role of Alex. And I think we got into an issue where the actor lost interest, or I think it was just like one of those like managers step in, and it happens in LA. But I just didn't feel like the original actor we had was, I just instinct. I know that sounds so cliche to say. I just didn't feel like they were right for the part. And it's not bad blood or anything. I mean, we're still friends, we're still colleagues to this day. But Alex, I mean, I had Madison send your info. I think I was like, yeah, I'll meet with Alex. And Alex met in like some cafe at Silver Lake. And I remember like you had your skateboard at the time. So I was kind of like, oh, you look like the character. Because I walked up and I was like, I think that's him. And it's weird because I don't think like you knew this description of the character or what I had in mind for the like clothing or kind of like the way like Alex walked, but you were like dressed for the part. So it kind of like made sense. And definitely, I mean, Alex's self tape, he sent it to Maddie and I. I think it was like that same week. And I remember texting Madison. I was like, oh my God, like this is like, I have to watch this like again and again. And she's like, is that good? I'm like, yeah, like it's scared the heck out of me. Like he did, Alex did two emotional scenes that I think I was looking for someone to just like, to help me understand like the meaning of some of that dialogue. And that sounds weird to say, but I feel like I didn't understand some of the dialogue with Alex until Alex Montalban did just the read, and it just felt very real, felt honest. It just felt like you weren't watching a self tape, and the way you shot it, Alex, too, it looked like you were talking to a friend. So it felt very real, and I got like chills just even watching it. it just didn't seem like acting. It's cliche to say, but that's kind of like I feel like any filmmaker's dream is when the actor makes you forget that you're watching a self tape or an audition tape, because then it's like they become that character, or you see them as that character that they're trying out for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well said.
Alex, what is like one of your most memorable scenes or parts or something that you did with the script that you could say really sticks out?
I mean, you're gonna have to pay the $2.99 on Amazon to watch it
Yes.
if you unless you already have. But there were a lot of very deep, heavy moments. Um, a lot of them were with Maddison, who plays Erica. Um, it was just a really good opportunity to let everything go and just escape in this role. Um, and I respond. This character was very well received. I related to him. I almost am him. So it was almost a sense of just therapy to, when you go through acting, any sort of training, any sort of acting method, you sort of have these building blocks, and you're constantly trying to think of, okay, emotional preparation, coming into a scene, holding it, reacting off and really spilling your truth. And it's hard to keep all of those blocks in place at times. Um, but I've been so far removed now from this intensive course that I took, 3, 4 years ago, that this project really enabled me the ability to forget about all those steps, all those rules, and really just dive in and feel the character. And the thousands of auditions that I've had and roles that I've had, I've never had that opportunity. Um, so I think, to answer your question, generally, it was the whole script. Every single scene that I did touched me in a different way. If that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. It all has its own moments, right? Each part has its own moment.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's such a good the story is just so good, and it evolves, and the character arches and the development. Um, it's really strong, powerful stuff, and especially amidst what we're going through as a country,
Right? Super.
in particular as a country. I think the timing of this release really couldn't have been any better.
Yeah.
Natalie, did you plan this?
No, I mean, so we were supposed to release back in May. When was at the beginning of the pandemic? So actually, that was Alex was like the second, third person to say that. They're like, "Oh no, I think this is like the perfect month to release it." I think it's especially July was a big month. Like I know a lot of my friends like getting job layoffs, or they're kind of experiencing like a lot of anxiety, depression themselves, even PTSD. So it seems like I'm glad that's been the reaction we've been getting. I just never thought about that. So it is kind of ironic timing. Just, I mean, we had this release date planned for about, I think like 8 or 9 months. So this was way back in like November, December of last year. So that kind of shows you like how so much can just happen within, planning and when that day actually arrives.
Yeah. Okay. And is there anything you guys want to plug in about the film, or anything you want to share um, now, Natalie?
Um, do you want us to talk about like any like I'm thinking what else? Like any favorite scenes we did, or kind of like any moments that were like challenging, anything like that?
Yeah, how about that? What is like one crazy moment on set that happened, Alex, Natalie, something funny, crazy that happened on set while you guys were shooting?
I have one.
Do you have one?
Um, so we filmed it's we filmed like a very it was like one of the most difficult scenes because we actually me and my cinematographer Trevor Roach we ditched our shot list because we were filming at Cal State Fullerton. It's a scene where Bianca, Alex, and Erica, the three main characters, they're walking home from the bar, and we long takes. So we only did, I think it was like 4 to 5 takes, which is still considered like a lot, but not for like most films. They usually do like multiple takes. But we had security on the Cal State Fullerton campus come up to me and Trevor, the DP, like, oh, so are you guys almost done? Because there's about to be a naked, like a naked mile run. Like they call it the naked mile run, but people are just like in their undergarments. And we're like, oh, that's happening today. Like, yeah, in about 20 minutes. So they're like, if you guys can just get what you need, just like you might want to get it now. So that was like a random, like kind of set story. And what made it kind of a little sad because like it was one of the darkest scenes. Like we had poor Maddison who plays Erica. She had to be crying and she was like freaking out. She's having like an anxiety attack in the scene. And we have Alex and Bianca is played by Anna. Like they had to be like in this very like aggressive, like angry scene because there's an incident that happens in the scene in particular. So I think kind of like that random naked mile run kind of lightened up the tone after set because when you film these dark, heavy scenes, you know, sometimes you can get caught up in like that mentality of the characters, whether you're playing the characters themselves or you're behind the scenes watching it. So that was kind of like that was interesting, like like set facts because we were just like, oh, this is like the most random thing. And when we wrapped that scene, literally like less than 2 minutes later, like everyone was running by in like their undergarments and there was maybe about like I'm not kidding, probably like 50 to 80 people that were just like running by us. So that was kind of
Film it.
it was a little it was funny, but you're like, this is like the weirdest like shoot day ever. Like we're doing this like dark stuff and then this happens and you're like, okay, that's a wrap, everyone. Let's just go home and like get some sleep and come back the next day to, shoot again.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that scene. It
Yeah,
definitely shed some light though, without a doubt. That was
it did.
definitely amusing.
I know it was like it's just bizarre. Like I wish we had I'm sure we have like behind the scenes like stills that we had a still photographer, so I'd be curious to see like how our tone looks and then versus like the students that were running by that that night. And it was like late at night too. I think it was like 9, 10 o'clock at night. So end of the day shoot, everyone was tired. I think felt a little delirious on set that day.
And Alex, any projects now? I mean, what is it? What are you doing now? How does everything look like?
I do a lot of what's called sport and special ability. Um, so I have an agent in Los Angeles who's still. I'm currently in Ann Arbor, Michigan, working another job, but I have an agent in LA who constantly sends. I mean, it's all self-tape stuff. But I actually have an Apple iPhone commercial airing right now. I doubled for Mark Stone. He plays for the Las Vegas Knights. Um, so I got to be a big part of that creative, and it's airing all over the place with the NHL playoffs going on right now. But majority it's sport and special ability stuff. Sometimes I'll get some scripts sent over, and I'll read them. Some I respond to, others I don't, and yeah, it's just a matter of finding what really strikes your chord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
100%.
how are you staying creative or staying kind of active with this whole quarantine, or even with your mental health? How is that? How does that happen now with quarantine? Like, how is that? What does that look like for you?
I mean, being outside, I think, is really important.
Mhm.
I don't know if gyms will ever be a thing again until there's, a vaccine. And I spend a lot of time per week just in a gym, exercising, lifting weights, doing all that. But being outside in the sun, catching some vitamin D, working out, being around people but socially distanced. Especially just after a long day of work too. It's that's an outlet in and of itself. And yeah, I think from a physical standpoint, there are surely multiple ways to deal with um, just the lack of socialization and interaction with people that we
Yeah.
were so accustomed to in the past. Um, but I think it's also been really good. Yeah, that physical outlet, but people also really need um, people got to be able to talk, and not just talk, but they need to be heard. Um, so really understanding who your friends are and the people in your life who um, don't just hear you, but they listen to you. And I think that's what's been kind of keeping me sane, as I've been able to separate those two types of people. Um, and yeah, from a from a mental standpoint, you
Yeah.
know, having that outlet, just being able to vent, or just, you know, being heard, or I'm sorry, being listened to rather, is extremely important. So luckily, I do have a very solid friend base, both here in Michigan and in California, and you know, those relationships keep me afloat.
Yeah.
And Natalie, what about you?
Same thing. I mean, going off what Alex said, I think, especially during this quarantine pandemic, um, I mean, I think it's just keeping, remember like who your loved ones are, family, friends, colleagues. I think because everyone I know, I mean, everyone's been experiencing some sort of like anxiety or depression because of quarantine. Literally, I get texts from like friends every day saying, I'm losing my mind just staying in the house. Like, I want to go here and there, but I can't. I think definitely I agree with Alex getting outside. I've been guilty of that. I actually started doing that again this week where trying to take like 20 to 45-minute walks, listening to some music.
Uh-huh.
Usually I'll make my phone calls to like family members, people like my mom. Sometimes, friends, colleagues to catch up to see like what's going on. But I think that's important. It's definitely, I think, making sure that you're taking self-care, you're also getting rest. I mean, I've been horrible before this pandemic with my sleep. So I learned how much I've taken advantage of sleep and rest. Like just kind of entertainment's known, right? As that you're on that hustle and grind. It's kind of like that hamster spinning wheel where you just keep going on stop. So I definitely, kind of had a wake up call with this pandemic, which is, taking more breaks or, not being on. I think Joey, we talked about this before, like turning off like our computers at a certain time. So you're not sitting there in the middle of the night, like sending out emails or just staring at your screen all day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of, I think that's just like key. It's just making sure that you kind of step away from your phones and get outside. I mean, it's so cliche, but I think it really does help. It's the endorphins. Your body will thank you later if you keep doing that ritually.
So we have two questions for Alex
Yeah.
submitted directly through social media. First question is from Chris, and it says, "How did you break through to get your lead role?" That's the question.
How did I break through? A lot of tears. That's how I broke through. I was a little stubborn punk before I enrolled in this acting intensive, and it just broke the doors wide open for me, and
Yeah.
I checked that ego at the door, and you know, I was never incapable of expressing emotion, but it wasn't true, it wasn't real emotion until I was able to just swallow some of that pride, and just let me be. And that is, you know, some of the most truthful acting that can ever be portrayed on camera. So to answer your question, Chris, uh, checking my ego, and letting my heart lead and not my chest.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, cool. And then the next question is,
That was good. Are you writing that down? That was really good.
that was good.
You will.
Mm, okay, here we go. So, as an actor, what other roles do you want to portray in your next projects?
Spider-Man.
Really?
No. Maybe uh, I do still have these leading man aspirations. Um, so I guess just any sort of leading man type of role. An action hero, Marvel. Um,
Yeah.
one of the, you know, like who's that actor that I really like? Who's the who's the better looking Hemsworth?
Oh, is it Chris Hemsworth?
It's
There's
Chris,
Liam,
yeah. It's Chris. It's
Thor.
Chris. It's Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Thor. There you go. Thor, Joey. Thor, the next
Or
Thor.
that's gonna be? Your next
Hey,
role?
they
Or
they keep remaking those and rebooting. They just announced like I think it's sequel 5 and 6, like for 2022, 2023. So never know. They're still
Come
casting.
on, Hemsworth, I'm after you.
I know. We gotta find out who the casting director is.
Natalie, do you have
Marvel. He does all
any
Marvel.
question? Do you have a comment,
Like,
question for Alex
uh,
as the
I'm trying to
director?
think. Oh yeah. I'm always curious because I had someone ask me this recently. Because I kind of think like directing, because between dramas and comedies, I feel like comedies are harder for some reason. I think because comedies, they're all about timing, and especially if it's like I made a short like years ago called The D, and it's supposed to be for the douchebag, and it's about dating and all these like men, like 20-something-year-old males going through breakups. But I remember directing that was so much harder than EO, which is shocking because The D, it was pretty straightforward. It's just heavy dialogue, the characters joking back and forth. But I think what made that harder was just like it felt like you're choreographing with staging and the timing of the dialogue and the way to deliver. So Alex, I'm curious, do you find comedies like a little bit more challenging to do, like as an actor compared to dramas, or even something like doing your commercials like you did for Apple? Like I'm curious to know kind of like that process with doing the dramas and then doing something like that comedy or, you know, kind of like the sports like
I mean,
material.
yeah, that's actually a really good question, Nat. I think everyone has has that wheelhouse. Um,
Yeah.
Mine is not improvisational comedy.
Mhm.
Um, I've done improv, but again, it's all timing, it's all cadence,
Yeah.
and that it takes a lot of practice, and a lot of it is ad libbing, and you have to go off book, and that's just it wasn't how I was trained.
Yeah.
Um, I was trained to respect the writer's writing, and
Yeah.
that was you, and also our director. So for me, my wheelhouse is definitely more the dramatic realm.
Hmm.
Um, which it's really it's tough to like you flip that switch
Yeah.
and really reach the bottom of the barrel to hit some of those moments and some of those targets. Um, and that's what floats my boat. So I can't
Yeah.
really answer, but I just know that I would much rather do a dramatic role over a comedic role any day of the week.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, I think I was telling you that, Joey, too. Like, comedy is hard, but I like the challenge. But I think the drama is because I know with the extraordinary, like, it felt because we did do a lot of improv, and a lot of it was because of like scheduling wise, or I think we had like two locations, like, they fell through, and I'm like, okay, this kind of changes like the whole blocking with some of the characters. Like, we have smaller space to work with versus like the bigger space. Because I noticed too, even on EO when we improv, I know like we'd be like, okay, cast, here's your block and do this. And then me and my DP, Trevor, would always be like, oh my God, so we got to like improv like this entire shot list right now. And it's scary because like I think it's improv, it's a good challenge, but I think I agree. I mean, it's when you have your script, I love rehearsals with actors, and The Extraordinary Ordinary was the first film we didn't rehearse, which is kind of common for a lot of feature films, especially with cast and crew schedules. But it was a challenge because there was moments like I got scared or like you want to just make sure like everything goes according to plan. So improv kind of brings up those thoughts, like you just want things to go quote unquote right. And then improv is that's the whole thing they train you in like acting classes, theater classes. It's no, you just go with the flow, like whatever happens, just go with the flow, and that can be horrifying. So I'm never gonna get used to it, but I think it's good to have experience with it because it kind of shows you, like Alex mentioned, if you like it or if you're like, no, I don't like this at all. And I'm kind of on the same page. I love rehearsals with cast and crew. I think it's you guys get to know each other, work wise, and then you get to know each other on a personal level too. So it's good to have that.
Cool. So I have one final question.
Mm.
But before, any comments, anything you guys want to say before we say this final question and wrap it up?
Um, yeah, I mean, just to plug in, if you want to know more about the film, you want to know about what everyone's up to, you can follow us on social. It's the Extra Ord Film. We have cast members tagged like wonderful Alex here. So if you want to see his new Apple commercial, He's been posting it, and I'll be sure to reshare it too on my personal and the film account, so you guys can find Alex's social media accounts easily too. And then August 28th and Friday, 2 weeks, that's when our film will be released on Amazon and Google. And I'll keep you posted, Joey, and everyone else. We're going to be open on Tubi and iTunes in like I think September. For some reason, it takes another week or two for that to kick in. But we'll be posting once comes the release date on August 28th.
Cool. Alex,
Yeah, I'm excited for it. It seems as though it's already been pretty well received, and I think a general audience will wholeheartedly really enjoy this movie, and it's men and women alike. It's okay to cry.
Yes. It's okay to cry, and it's okay to
it's okay to cry. There you go. That's gonna be the
yeah.
line right there. It's okay to cry from Alex.
I like that.
Okay, so here's my question, and this is the final question. I teach kids or a younger audience on filmmaking and storytelling. What can you guys say, Natalie, as a director, Alex, in your role as an actor? What can you guys tell younger people who want to do the same thing, who want to be creative in Hollywood? What can you guys tell them?
If I can say something, oh, go ahead.
I talk to myself on a daily basis, and I think that's what constantly just keeps my creative juices flowing. And you know, I'll say the one thing that I maybe want to say to someone else later on in the day, preemptively, over and over again. Wait, that's not the right delivery. And from an actor's standpoint, like that's going up in your head. That's not the right thing to do. Yeah. But I would just say, don't be afraid to just admit whatever it is, whether you're laughing, crying, screaming, just emote. Show your true colors each and every day. Don't hide them. Don't sweep them under the rug. That's probably the worst thing that you can do. Just, face your problems, face your accolades, your rewards, your strengths, your weaknesses. Just face everything head on and embrace them.
Yeah, I like that.
Natalie?
For me, for directing, something I like that Alex, Maddison, and Anna did on the film with The Extraordinary. I think if you want to be an actor, I think don't ever be afraid to ask your director if you want to try a certain scene a different way. I love that. I mean, personally, I love when actors come to me and they're like, "Hey, I know in the script it says to do this, but could I do this in one take?" Because 9 out of 10 I think most directors are gonna be like, "Yeah, that's better." Or, "Oh my God, yeah, I didn't think about that. Let's get both versions." So I never be afraid to ask. I know because there's a lot of stigmas with I think directors, like especially if they write the script. I just always hated that. I mean, I personally like when I just see a film. It's you're working as a team. I mean. The director's not acting. The director, even if they're producing, you have another producer usually, and you're not usually filming the project yourself. So just never be afraid to ask your director questions. If you don't understand something, ask them, "Hey, can you go over this character more? Can you go over this scene more? Or what does this line mean?" Because I guarantee you, most directors, they want you to like come to them and help you. They want to guide you there and understand, the scenario or the whole entire project. A lot more better. I think because it's fun too. I mean, you guys, that's just what the collaboration is. It's just asking questions and both trying to figure out how to get there. Because that's in the day, that's the goal. It's having, what's best for the product itself. So it does take multiple minds to get there to the finished product.
Very cool, guys. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah. Guys, links are in the description below. You can find everything there. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Alex. Hope to have you guys back on next time. Okay?
Yes.
Thanks,
for
Joey.
sure. All right. Thank you.